We're going to have a slight change of pace now because we're going to have a chat rather than the presentation. So June has very kindly... it's up to you. Oh, we didn't rehearse that bit, did we? No, okay.
I think this is good.
Yeah, this is good. So, so we decided it would be nicer to have a chat than have another presentation to break things up a little bit. And so I thought it would be good to have a chat with June because she... I don't mean this the way it sounds, but you've been in this for a while. And so your opinions are important, not just to me, but to the people in the room. So thank you very much for agreeing to this. And I know that you're ready to answer questions on absolutely anything, but I think we'll focus on merchant payments today. Okay. So I want to begin, but, oh, sorry, do you want to explain to people who you are? Because I know, but it's
the mystery.
It's not like Graham Norton. I mean, not everybody in the seat is as well known as you, so you...
Well, you're very kind. My name's June Felix. I'm the president for Verifone Europe and also Russia. I'm delighted to be here today. This is a really interesting intersection of technology, payments, and disruption, so thank you.
Now, I know you were here last year because I was on the same panel. So I know you were here last year when people began talking about this need for acquirers to become part of an ecosystem and not just be about payments. And I know you share that view. So can I start off just by asking you, what does it take? I mean, it's easy to bandy around ecosystem when we saw the example of Alipay earlier on. But what does it take for these people to move into that way of thinking? And what are you doing to help this new mode of business?
Well, I think if you look at it in terms of the need to open up the ecosystem, honestly, it doesn't take very much because we are under all tremendous pressure today. If you think about the amount of disruption, we just heard about disruption, people looking at how to serve clients better, regulatory pressures, business model pressures, there's no choice, right? There's no choice. Whether you're in acquiring, payment acceptance, the business model has to change because there's a lot of M&A. People are going to consolidate the industry. So there's a need to look beyond what we've traditionally defined as the way we make money. And so what it takes is a couple things. One is a mindset that says, okay, there's parts of this entire ecosystem or business where we understand the need. We actually have a really important role and where we're going to major our investment dollars in. But there are aspects, whether it's in data, some companies are experts in data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, fraud. Other people may not have either the bandwidth, the capital, or the interest in doing that. So it's a combination of the partnership mentality. Then there's a question of, have you built a technology base that's open? So what we're doing at Verifone is all around creating platforms that enable partnerships to happen very quickly, easily, and to take advantage of the power of all this creativity that's in the industry now. So what used to be a simple little box, a dumb phone equivalent in a lot of the retail stores, those little bricks, is now transforming into a much more powerful type of interface or point of interaction between consumers, merchants, and also the ecosystem.
Can I just ask though, so in the example that Julian gave earlier in the last keynote, I can see that because they don't have a legacy infrastructure. And actually they also have that kind of more API-centric mentality, what I regard as a younger mentality. So I can see how in that, and they already have an API marketplace and this sort of thing. But for the large-scale merchants that you're involved with, it's easy to say, we need to move to this more ecosystem. But how is it working out in practice? Because aren't they constrained a little by their legacy?
Yes and no. I think what we're finding is, so Verifone, for those that don't know, I know we're in Europe, but in the U.S., where we have over 70% share with some of the largest retailers in the US, but also in the world, what we're finding is that the very ambitious, aggressive retailers are really looking at pivoting. They're very much exploring new technologies. They're actually even saying, you know, all that stuff in payments, you know, actually, that's not our space. That's your space. You handle it for us, right? We see that move also in P2PE, you know, for those that all know those acronyms in Europe. Essentially, it's a cheaper way for merchants to still be secure because they're offloading some of those very gnarly investments that, and if you think about it, the need for technology advancement continues to grow with all the different alternative payments, and they really just want to accept payments at the end of the day. So they really need partnerships of people that are in that space.
And you help their existing systems to integrate into this new...
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not just selling the boxes, it's the service that goes with it.
All the ecosystem.
Can I just pick, before we go back to the app thing again, can I just pick you up on, you said, and you went past it quite quickly, but you said security. And it seems to me that one of the challenges in going to that kind of more open environment, that kind of ecosystem, is it does bring with it, you know, a different degree of security challenge, and it does mean upping the game a bit, doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
Are you guys doing anything in that space?
Well, I mean, we've been in this space for about 40 years in terms of looking at payment security. And, you know, I think the big mistake is when people think about security as a silo. Oh, it's those people over there that worry about that. I mean, one of the things when I used to be at IBM, we found is really important is security has to be integrated from the beginning in everything you do. So in the ecosystem that we're talking about in partnerships, it's really to understand the whole trail, right? All of the connections, the interactions. And for us, it's a question of not only the platforms and when we authenticate people, how we encrypt the messages, how we transport them, but also how we ensure that the data that we keep in terms of tokenization is kept secure. So it's the whole end-to-end process. It's not just about points of failure.
So security is part of the platform you're offering.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just ask you one more thing, because the ecosystem stuff really interests me. So for that to work in this kind of modern space, it has to have some kind of momentum, because you're not selling, in a way, you're selling to the developers that are going to develop the new apps rather than the traditional customer, if I'm interpreting it correctly. So that means you have to get some kind of developer momentum behind it, and that's also a new business for you guys, isn't it? How is that gone?
Well, it is and it isn't. So certainly in terms of partnering with developers, you know, many of the advanced and well-established ones like Alipay, partner with them, as well as, you know, Apple Pay, et cetera, and many others. But in terms of the small development shops and apps, we have hundreds of people that are now working with us. So over 300 people across on a global basis are developing new applications to, and what we do is make sure that they're secure, right? So part of the challenge, it's all real cool to have these apps, but at the end of the day, money moves, right? So you need to ensure that there's no breach of that particular stream.
But we need, I mean, to use the kind of classical, we need to get the kids in the basements writing these new, because like they're the ones that have the ideas for the new stuff. So somehow we've got to capture that. Yeah. So do you feel the platform is moving in that direction?
Absolutely. I mean, it was built with that in mind. I mean, we built it, you know, out of our offices in Silicon Valley. We have, you know, actually reached out to the community. We've run hackathons, apathons all over the world, so that we've engaged many of those individuals. But we also have, one of the great things is that I'm privileged to say that we have a very large business in the Nordics, and that's the home of Spotify. You know, that's the home of all the Angry Birds, the things that have disrupted or created new business models. And we have, you know, a big team of people that reach out to the community and actually work with them as well to build new apps.
So that's quite a new way of doing business, isn't it, really? That's interesting. Okay, so let's move on to what I actually wanted to talk to you about, which was, so it seems to me that the POS market as a whole is linked to this shift towards cashlessness. So my assumption is that your future prosperity, to some extent, depends on the steady replacement of cash, not just in the traditional points of sale, like at the retailers and stores. By the way, I should say I'm talking about other countries here, not Germany. Let me just make that really clear. So in other countries, it's not just the traditional points of sale, the stores and so on, but it's also, because of this whole kind of Internet of Things, it's turning everything into points of sale where the new technologies, contactless apps and whatever, can be used. So I get you're tracking this move towards cashlessness, presumably.
Yeah, we're not only tracking it, we're actually deeply immersed in it. So, as I said, in the Nordics, which we'll use as an example, because in Europe it's our closest disruption, markets of disruption. What we see there is they're competing with each other to be totally cashless, whether it's Sweden or whether it's Norway. Some of those countries really are very, very close to not accepting cash for anything. I was actually quite surprised when the first time I went to Norway and I tried to buy a cup of coffee. I think it was equivalent of 50 cents. And they said, and you pay with card, right? You would actually find that pretty stunning in some parts of the world. But there, it is just the way they do business. They find it more convenient. They find it individuals just do that naturally. And what we've seen is a lot of the banks have been very innovative, and tech and fintech disruptors like mobile pay have been very disruptive in combining the combination of the mobile phone and leveraging our infrastructure and our points of presence across the market to make it super simple for you to tap and pay with your phone. So that was actually quite interesting that they have already gone from contactless cards to using phones. And places like Denmark have, out of a population of 6 million people, 2 million mobile pay apps that are used at the point of sale as well as person to person.
So what do we do to persuade other countries to go down that route? I mean, why is it happening there?
Well, you have a perfect storm. You have the technology. You have a sophisticated consumer base, right? Individuals that have pervasive presence. And you have banks that really want to hold on to the current accounts. So you have this combination, and you have a technology partner, us in this case, that broke the code. Because one of the big challenges was Apple phones were locked down. So you could not use their mobile pay app at the store. We could exchange money, but we figured out how to do that, and we uniquely were able to do that. So all of a sudden you've unlocked a big portion of the population that can go in and use this technology. So it's that perfect storm. Now, I think what you're seeing in the rest of Europe is the pressure to have these new perfect storms, right? We have Pay by Bank app, by MasterCard is a great example. We have, across all of the Nordics, they have already, the banks have gotten together, created equivalent
Swish
apps,
and
Swish and Vips and all the different names. But the underlying idea is let's hold on to our clients. Let's make it super convenient for them to stay with us. And by the way, all the technology exists to do that.
Well, let me pick on one of those technologies, because from a UK perspective, the technology that's done, as far as I can see, more than anything else to accelerate this slide towards cashless is actually contactless. And I want to ask you a question about this, because a few years ago at events like this, people, and I was one of them, by the way, people thought that contactless was a stepping stone on the way to mobile. In other words, once everyone's gone out and bought VX820s, then people will start using Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, whatever. But in the UK, that hasn't quite happened, because contactless has been so successful. People find it so easy, so convenient. The numbers are just going through the roof. They basically can't be bothered to mess around with Apple Pay and Google Pay and stuff like that. So do you think, weirdly, that the success of contactless in some places is actually going to hold back the evolution of those mobile? I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but I'm genuinely curious, because you have this perspective.
Well, I would say it actually is not necessarily holding it back. It's getting people used to a different way to pay. So I think that actually eventually will open up the options for, whether it's a wallet-based phone app. Because if you think about it, it's super convenient, and up to 30 pounds, you can tap and pay. Once you go over 30 pounds, you have to get your Apple phone out, and you have to tap and pay with your phone. So you do see it becomes a question of habit.
But that's confusing for consumers, isn't it? Because people like you and me know that you can use your Apple Pay above the contactless limit, but actually I think the general public don't, and nor do the general retailers. So again, this keeps us back with contactless rather than moving on. I'm guessing contactless has been really good for you because it's an awful lot of those terminals. But is contactless holding us back a little bit from moving on?
I think it's going to be an and.
One of those sophisticated, cool app things, right, for retailers?
Well, if you look at the Nordics as an example, they actually just skipped the contactless, right? So they just went straight to the person-to-person. Now for them, I use that for everything, small and large payments and person-to-person. So it's going to be interesting country by country, because Europe is very different, as we all know, as it relates to that, whether it's going to leapfrog that or not. I couldn't predict as a European-wide example. I think that all the small transactions for contactless, for a large percentage of the population that may not be comfortable with the phone as another device, it will probably be.
How's contactless going in the States at the moment? Because the last couple of times I've been to the US, when you go into a store to buy something, you literally have no idea how to buy it. Every POS is different. You've no idea whether they take contactless, or if they take contactless but not Apple Pay, or if you have to put the chip in, or if you have to do the PIN, or have to do chip and signature. The US has gone weird, hasn't it, with this kind of. But how's contactless doing there?
I think it's going to grow, because look at what we've just done, right? We went from something super simple, just swipe, right? Took 2 seconds or less than 2 seconds, to now put the chip in, remember your PIN, or put the chip in and sign. So that friction in the system and how long the lines are going, the lines will be a little longer for individuals, especially in quick service restaurants, that I think contactless and other options will, in a Darwinian way, have to grow.
You think the US will catch up eventually?
Eventually, but it's a big country, so the percentages are.
All right, let me finish up. Okay, we're talking about technology. I don't want you. I'm not inducing you to give away any top secrets from the R&D lab. But the things that we've been talking about, contactless mobile. I regard those as quite old hat now. Those are standard parts of the toolbox. For you, they're standard million-unit products. What's the technology that's coming next? What are you looking at the corner of your eye?
Well, I think it's going to be the combination of all the data analytics that we've talked about, because if you think about it, we process just in the in Europe alone, 5 billion transactions a year. We process $225 billion worth of transactions, because we don't care if it's a MasterCard, Visa, Amex, Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever. The data by itself is interesting, but it's really how you use it. I always use this because I can. I am a power shopper. Many women have no time. I would prefer the data be used on my behalf to do things that are convenient for me. I think that the opportunity for, as a business model, to go beyond just the payment and all of the connected information, insights, is very, very important. And I think that consumers will opt in if it is done in a considered way as opposed to a creepy way. So I think there's a lot of upside in that. We are investing a lot and already securely have a lot of that data, all the stuff we had to do in order transporting payment data securely, I think can be leveraged to create much better consumer experiences.
So you're on Susan's page with this sort of thing, right? The next big thing isn't really the payment; it's the payments data. And that's where people here should be looking for new business opportunities.
Absolutely.
In that space, on your platform, of course.
Absolutely. Okay.
June, thank you very much for coming and sitting here, and thank you very much for being open with us about your perspectives on a great, great business. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Please.